Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the garage for an earlier edition of our Sunday Live with Andy the Gabby Cabby and a guest I will bring on in a moment. Just to let everyone know, obviously this is very much earlier than what we usually do on a Sunday. When this live is finished, I'm going to repackage it, re-upload it, and it will play again at 9 o'clock this evening for anybody that misses it. Kind of an omnibus edition, so don't worry too much if you aren't here. Well, what's this about? Reform UK. We've done some videos and covered some topics to do with Reform UK over the past couple of weeks. Very many questions that you have, very many concerns. You've made that abundantly clear. I had a chat with Noel WILLCOX about things, and he's going to come on today and tell you for his part where he is in all of this and try and answer some of your concerns and queries about reform and anything else. So without further ado, we'll bring him on and say hello to Noel. Hello, mate.
Hi, Andy. Hi.
All right?
I'm all right. Lovely to see you on this cold Sunday morning in April.
Yeah, you're better dressed than me. Look, I've got short sleeves.
Do you know what I've been meaning to ask you, Andy? Is it cold in that garage?
Yeah, perishing.
Really?
It's better than what it used to be, because I was approached by a company to do a review of one of their infrared heaters. And as part of the deal, they were going to give me an infrared heater. And I thought, perfect, garage. And it's a lot warmer than it used to be. But in the winter months, on my previous videos, I've been in here with a fleece on and a beanie hat, looking like I'm outside in the North Pole somewhere. Yeah, more tolerable. But
outstanding.
Yeah, today, as we've been talking privately off air, we wanted to go talk a little bit about you, some of the issues that you've been covering. More famously, child maintenance, ULEZ, and a few other bits and pieces, and some things about reform as well, which concern people, if you can shed any light on those. So I've got a little list of what I want to ask you, and we'll start from the top. Where did you start? Who are you? Who's Noel WILLCOX? Tell me a bit about you and your background.
Okay, so Noel WILLCOX is a normal guy, just like the rest of us. I come from a working class background. I grew up on a council estate. My mum and dad separated when I was very, very young. So predominantly my mother brought me up, credit to her, and my grandmother, who I was very, very, very close to. So, I've got a massive amount of life experience in terms of the struggles that we faced, the everyday struggles that we faced, and a different perception on life to those that actually govern us, Andy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the problem, they all go to university. They all get some kind of internship or some other route into that place and have their entire professional life in politics inside the Westminster bubble, don't they? And don't really have much of an idea of what the hell goes on in the outside world. And that's what's missing, isn't it?
Yes, it definitely is. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Lee Anderson, so many people can actually connect with Lee. And for those that don't know, Lee is an MP now for Reform UK.
That's right.
And my backstory is very sort of similar to Lee's story. I set up a scaffolding business 2016, I think it was 2016, 2017. And I faced all the struggles of everyday people. I joined the Army Reserves when I was 18 years old. That's given me a huge life experience. I would like to think that I'm a good leader. I would like to think that the Army gave me the values and standards that I adopt my life today. The Army is a very, very, very tough business. The British Army is a very, very tough business. And I thoroughly enjoyed it and had some real life experiences whilst in the military, and connected with some really, really good people. And I suppose for me, Andy, I I swore an oath of allegiance to this country. And recently I've started really questioning that oath that I swore, because a lot of things don't make sense to me, like what they do to everyday people and what direction our country's going in at the moment, and obviously how we're actually being governed as well.
I mean, you talk about a real life normal person. A couple of things that you said in your opening words are very similar to my own life. You know, my parents split up when I was very young. I was lucky enough; I did have complete access to my father as well as my mother. So, from that point of view, it was ideal. It was around the time of the miners' strikes in the 80s. So, yeah, 18-hour shifts for a copper, which is what he was. And you set up your business about the same time I set up mine as well. But I wouldn't want to go into politics. I've stuck my finger in the water with, local politics. I nearly got it bitten off. I thought, how toxic and horrible an environment. So are you out of your mind? Why would you want to go into politics if there wasn't another way of doing it?
So, Andy, I suppose why I got into politics was my treatment of the family courts. The mother stopped access to my daughter for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Obviously you're directed to go through the court process when you want to have contact with your child or you want to have access to your child. And I actually thought that I was doing the right thing. Well, I couldn't have been more wrong entering into the family courts. So, yeah, like I say, the mother stopped contact, stopped access for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And I will clarify that point. No reason whatsoever. A lot of different things were alleged against me with absolutely no grounds, with no evidence at all. And what I couldn't get my head round was the open bias towards the mother and how the whole system frowned upon me, a man who has served his country. I have no criminal convictions. I've always tried to do the right thing in life, and how I was persecuted for simply doing nothing. All I wanted to do was just have a normal relationship with my daughter. I wasn't asking for an awful lot, and how it was just an uphill battle and an uphill task. So, like all of these things, curiosity killed the cat.
Right.
And what I couldn't understand is, just having served my country, obviously leading men on the battlefield, being in a command appointment that I was in, and how I was unable to take my daughter to a simple thing such as the cinema or the zoo. It just couldn't make sense. It just didn't make sense to me. I'm entrusted to go and lead men on the battlefield, men and women, but I can't take my daughter to go and watch, Barbie or something very, very simple. So how I was persecuted really quite troubled me. Now, my daughter was involved in a very, very high profile case where the grandmother had died under suspicious circumstances. Then when I started conducting my own investigations and looking into the different roads that this case was going into, I quickly discovered the man that lived in my daughter's house had a very, very serious propensity towards violence.
Right.
He was involved in the Queen's Park Rangers chairman kidnapping back in 2008. I don't know if you actually remember that case. Yeah. So it was a very, very high profile case where the chairman was held at gunpoint. This man had also admitted to police that he had a serious drugs problem.
Right.
And how he was written up in the various reports from Kafkas child protection services. So for those that have never been involved in the family courts, CAFCAS, they're appointed by the courts to try and find out what's going on in the family units. And CAFCAS's report I found very biased towards the mother and the stepfather, where they had actually written text stating that the stepfather was actually a role model in my daughter's life. Somebody who had a very serious criminal background and somebody who was heavily involved in drugs, and also that the mother and the stepfather had both been arrested for the suspicious death of the grandmother.
Right.
Now, you're probably sitting there absolutely bamboozled by what I've just said, but this is the reality of what's going on in the family courts.
It's in the best interest to remove the daughter from the situation, or, you know, have the situation dealt with, and it is unfair bias, and that situation could lead to complete disaster for the daughter, the mother, the father, everything. The child's welfare is at question. And what have they done? Nothing, by the sound of it.
Absolutely nothing at all. I mean, if anything, they've fought me the whole way to try and do the right thing regarding my daughter. Bearing in mind as well, it's the financial implications to this as well, Andy. There's serious financial costs to this, trying to get access to see a child. I mean, it's astronomical costs. It's tens of thousands of pounds. You know, it's not a couple of £100, it's just tens of thousands of pounds. So really and truly, I think that was where the interest, from my perspective, started in politics, to understand what's going wrong. So that's what directed me towards politics, because I do believe that you're never, ever going to be able to look at a system from the outside. You kind of have to get in on the inside to change a system. Right. So in essence, what you have to do is use a system against a system. So at that point, I was quite focused on what my objectives were. And then I actually quite enjoyed my journey of politics, of understanding so many different things: the economy, the police, the cost of living crisis. And I actually started really getting into it and understanding what actually affects everyday people.
Right. Well, why reform? Why not Conservative? Why not Labour? I mean, you talk about the system, getting within the system to fight the system. I couldn't do it. You know, I like being outside the system, exposing the system, like we've done in the past with ULEZ, which we'll come on to in a little while briefly. So why not Tory? Why not Labour? Why a party like Reform? What took you to them?
Okay, so I was a Brexiteer, and I've always been very vocal about that. And obviously Reform was the former Brexit party. You know, I've always believed in the political agenda of what Brexit was all about. And one of the things for me was that I couldn't understand sovereignty. The sovereignty issue was a massive issue for me when I voted Brexit. So I could never understand why we have our own politicians here, why we have our own Bill of Rights, why we have our own constitution here, which can be overruled by a court in Brussels. That just didn't make sense to me. So it was one of those bases, and immigration, as to why I voted Brexit and wanted to leave the European Union. So Reform was always attractive to me on that basis, because the policies that Reform have spoken about, and some of those policies are on the left and on the right of politics, whereas the mainstream media would have everybody believe that we're a far right political party. So, but I mean, we'll come into policies a little bit later on in the discussion.
Absolutely.
So that's what I found with reform. And then I stood in the local election back in 2020. When was the pandemic? Was it 2020 or 21?
Started in 2020. March 2020 was when Boris come on the telly and told us all to stay at home. I'll never forget it.
So, sorry, forgive me. It was either 2020 or 2021 was when I first stood in the local elections. And what I was quite surprised at was the amount of votes that I actually received without me going out and canvassing, because at that time we weren't allowed to canvass. Then it was around the time when Prince Philip had died, so we had state mourning. So I couldn't actually go out and knock on doors and speak to people.
Right.
And I got near something about 80 votes, which doesn't sound a lot, but for a brand new political party that had literally just come onto the map, I thought I was quite impressed with myself.
Right.
So I stood in that election, and then I stood in the local election, which was closer to me, which was in Grove Hill, and I got over 5% of that vote in the local election for the amount of voters. So that was really, really successful as well in that local election. And when I attended the first party conference, which was in Manchester, I felt, did you know what? This is like my second family now. I'm sitting here with like-minded people who all feel exactly the same way as what I do.
Wonderful.
So that's really why I connected with reform.
Okay. I mean, the worry is the way the establishment is set up. I mean, you have Westminster and you have the mainstream media. You've said it yourself straight away. You're labelled as far right because effectively you're against the system. Anything that's against the system or says anything against it, you're far right. End of. And I've analysed the figures from a couple of recent by-elections, including the one Ben Habib stood in. And if you look at the electorate, the size of the electorate in both of these places against the actual count, 60% or thereabouts of the people in those electorates stayed indoors, didn't even come out and vote. And I wonder how much of that figure could come out and vote for something different. They need encouraging. Most definitely. I mean, you're into so many very important issues. I mean, one I want to come across straight away, which people have been following, if you don't mind, is you, Les.
Sorry, Andy, do you mind? Sorry, Andy, do you mind, just before we venture into what people want to know and what their concerns are?
Yeah, no worries.
Just to finalise that point regarding why I joined Reform. Well, when I looked at the Conservatives and I looked at Labour, to me, they're all traitors. Every one of them is spineless and absolutely gutless and chinless, as far as I'm concerned. And our country is not in a good place at the moment.
No,
and this is because we've had two consecutive parties who have held the seat of power, both Labour and Conservative. So if we keep voting for the same two political parties, nothing is going to change.
No.
It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
That's why I went to Reform.
Totally agree with everything you've just said there. And the problem is so many people are still brainwashed effectively by the system. I have friends and relatives who say, oh, I'm going to vote Conservative because that's what I've always done. Excuse my language, for fuck's sake, step back and look at the situation and then make a decision. It's, you know, it might not work this time. It might take another 4 years before people see the light, but something's got to happen now. And you say about being spineless, I see nothing but appeasement of, you know, certain demographics, certain people. Oh, we don't want to upset them. Go over there and we'll arrest anybody that says anything different. It's a disgrace. You can't run a country like that.
No, definitely not. And like I say, just for me, if we continue to vote the same, I mean, what's the first sign of madness? Keep doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. It's not going to happen. You know, they've promised so many different things over the years. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the Conservatives, I mean, they are traitors. They are absolute traitors. There's nothing that they've said in their manifesto that have actually gone out and done. If anything, they've gone in the opposite. It's absolutely disgraceful that they were elected on the mandate that they brought forwards to Westminster, and they've implemented nothing.
Well, it's that word, isn't it? Manifesto. It's a dirty word. It's never upheld, never kept to. I mean, you take politics out of it for a moment. If you say to me, Andy, I'm going to drive down and have a cup of tea with you, you've given me your word. It's a very simple example. I take people at their word every day. And if you tell me, Andy, I'm going to come down and drink a cup of tea with you and never turn up, I don't trust you. You know, it's the same with politics. If you say you're going to do it, get it done. It's power play.
That's what we're doing at Reform. I mean, that is what we're doing at Reform. And I hope by doing this interview today that people will see that all the PPC's potential parliamentary candidates, that we're all like-minded people like myself. And what we want to do is restore faith in politics. We want to restore faith that what we say we're going to do, we will do. Hence why people can see the campaigning that I do and the passion that I have for this campaigning. You know, whether it's ULEZ or whether it's the Child Maintenance Service. I'm not even elected, Andy. I'm nowhere near being elected. But look at what I'm achieving on both these topics.
Absolutely. Should we talk about those?
Yeah, no problem.
Right, we'll begin with you, Les. I mean, as people on the channel well know, Noel and I first become connected when I was sent an article about him in the media to do with the low emission zone charges that he was fighting over. I did a video sticking up for him, going, yeah, go for it, Noel. He reached out to me, and here we are. Now, this is a big, giant elephant in the room, this whole thing. And there's very much a suspicion that it could lead to pay per mile at some point in the future. Can you imagine that, driving into London and having to pay a charge for every mile you drive your car? Sadiq Khan says, oh, no, I'll never do that all the while I'm there. Well, I want to show you a little soundbite that came out in the press in the last couple of days, and then we'll go on.
Look, and I just want to be very clear about this. Sadiq's ruled out pay per mile for now, right? He's ruled out.
Ruled out pay per mile. For now, all in the wording, it all is for now. And we've got this big elephant in the room where we have to pay £12.50 every time we drive our car into London if it's non-compliant. Unacceptable. How's that going, Noel? Obviously, you're in it up to here with all of this, and you've got the crowdfunder you've set up to do with the legal fees, and you're fighting it too for now. Not only your own case, but on behalf of everybody else as well. Where are we with it?
Right, okay, so that's a very, very, very good question, Andy, and I'm going to do my best to answer this question because there are still legal proceedings at hand. So there's certain things that I can comment on and certain things that I can't. And believe me, I share everybody's frustration. And with the support network that I've got around me, I'm literally driven mad from the fact that I can't come out publicly and actually speak about what's going on. So firstly, I share everyone's frustration. There is nobody more frustrated at this situation than me. So in essence, because of what I'm implementing, Transport for London know that they're in an awful lot of trouble, and potentially could really change the outcome of how they are going to be able to operate and function as a body. Now, what the Greater London Authority did some years ago was give Transport for London, even though it's a corporation, is given its significant statutory protection. And that's what I'm struggling with at the moment, is to break through those barriers and break through those hurdles at the moment. I have implemented legal proceedings, and obviously I've kept you up to date with what's going on. And you know, you have obviously kept a lot of that information confidential because just right here and right now, we can't put that out into the public domain. But there is an awful lot that's going on behind the background, in the background. But what I can say is that Transport for London are literally fighting with every single thing that they have in their arsenal. So I am up to here at the moment in legal. My whole life is legal.
Right.
Every day it's legal. But listen, I've got a great support network around me. We're all working really, really hard to deliver for the people of London and everybody else. Because like I say, this has been rolled out. This cash grab has been rolled out undemocratic. There was no mandate for this whatsoever. It's being rolled out and it's basically tough. Suck it up, get on with it. So if we do not stand up, but what I'm seeing right here, right now, Andy, is a power shift across everything. I think the British people have been so bullied, they've been so downtrodden, and years and years and years and years of this, and this high regulation that we're experiencing, where we've got this nanny state who's imposing nothing that's been voted for. Nobody has voted for this.
No.
And it's been rammed down our throats and it's been stuffed down our throats. And we're expected to just be a good little boy and a good little girl and say, yes, no problem, Transport for London, no problem, state, no problem. We're just going to pay and do as we're told and be a good little boy and a good little girl. And I'm sorry, no more. The British people have had enough of it. I've had enough of it. Everyone's had enough of it.
Totally agree.
And if you do not stand up to the state, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. But what I'm experiencing, people who do stand up to the state, they do come after you. And that's what I'm experiencing at the moment. And the sort of people, you know, that I see really, really affected by this is the hardworking British taxpayer who's been absolutely crucified from every single angle. And all they're trying to do is go out and earn a living, pay their bills, put a roof over their head, and just do the right thing by society.
I mean, the thing with legal, you mentioned the word legal, it comes with a lot of pound notes after it. It can cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pounds, depending on the case that you're dealing with. And when you take on big bodies like government, TfL or anything like that, the longer it goes on, the more it costs, doesn't it? You know, trying to starve you out of the game, push you away, bury you under. Doesn't that illustrate another problem with this country, where if people do need genuine legal assistance, it's out of a lot of people's reach, and then you get wrong-uns, corporations and others that can just carry on as they like, unchecked. It's a disgrace.
Well, I mean, you raise a very good point, a very, very good point there, because we're exploited. Every day of our lives, we're exploited one way or another. You know, if you look at the rule of law, one of the elements of the rule of law is that the law has to be equal and the law has to be accessible as well. Well, I'm experiencing that it's not. And in terms of the human impact that this has had on my life, and I'm very tired, you know, I'm really tired from it. I mean, I'm battling this literally every single day of my life, Andy. You know, so the human impact that this has had, you know, on my mental health, the exhaustion, the time, the energy, the amount of time and man hours that I've put into this. And I mean, it's literally every single day. But Transport for London are sitting there and their lawyers on taxpayers' money and money that's been collected, so they can afford to do this all day. I've got to deal with this, as well as, you know, being in a relationship, you know, having a family life, being able to do the other things, run my business and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes I don't get to bed till like 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm up all night having to read law. And it should be a very, very simple process, but it's not.
I've had some private conversations with you where we've exchanged WhatsApp messages and you sound like you're about to drop. So I can fully back up what you just said there. You said you sound like a taxi driver after a 200-mile round trip. So I can imagine the work and the hours you've got to put in. I mean, some of these legal books
it's absolutely, exhausting, but I am a man of my word, Andy, and something that I start, I will make sure that I finish or give it the best that I possibly can.
That's all we can hope for. I mean, with the legal thing as well, I mean, in my life, I've had some legal issues I've had to deal with personally, completely unrelated to you, Les, and everything else. And what I've done, I've gone out and learned the law that applies to my situation, and I've dealt with it. I'm quite good with letters and all that sort of thing. But there's an individual that I know, whose details I won't go into because that's not for this video, but he's in a situation at the moment where he's got to deal with a situation legally, and it's going to cost thousands. Where's that? This guy's in a position where he's in receipt of benefits because of not being able to work because of previous issues and everything else. Yet his situation, he requires a legal remedy to, and that should be equally available to everybody, and it's not. And then he has to go down the GoFundMe route and all the crap that comes with that. It's the legal system is shot. I mean, the legal aid budget, where is it? They did away with a lot of this years ago, and it's done a lot of people a lot of harm.
Absolutely, 100 million %. I mean, so obviously, hopefully, I've answered as many questions as I can on the ULEZ side of things. Well, not ULEZ, the Low Emission Zone. There is a lot more to come. And believe me, there is a lot more to come in the press. We've got some exciting stuff as well. It's not all doom and gloom. We have got some exciting stuff because at the end of the day, Andy, I haven't done anything wrong. And when you haven't done anything wrong, you can walk away from a situation with your head held high.
Absolutely.
So, and then obviously I've been campaigning, exposing what I believe to be one of the biggest scandals that's ever hit our shores, which is the child maintenance service. And I've been very vocal about what's been going on with the child maintenance service. And really how I see it as a scam. I see the child maintenance service as a scam. That's my own personal belief. I don't believe that they are lifting children out of poverty, as they keep saying that they are. There's no evidence to substantiate that. And there's no better way to set up an organisation to extort money from paying parents, predominantly men, and then pump it out through the media saying that all of these men are deadbeat dads and they don't want to pay for their children. But we've set up this big, nasty organisation that's going to hunt these men down and do whatever it takes to take the money off of the men. But women are also affected by this as well, Andy. So I just want to clarify that point. It's predominantly men, but quite a lot of women are massively affected by this as well.
I have had a couple of examples come my way via you and a mutual friend of ours, where it's listed a woman's had to go to a hearing because of child maintenance service issues. So it's dead right what you say. I mean, you've done a lot of work. I mean, there's a special, a reform special where you were on the TV with Richard Tice and Anne Widdecombe discussing the effect on armed forces veterans with all of this, which is something close to your heart, obviously. And, Ian Biggs, the list is endless. And when the child maintenance service artificially inflate a person's income by 300%, and extort thousands out of them for something that just doesn't exist. My friend Paz is an example. He had all this and it nearly broke him. And that had a kind of happy ending in the end because he did something as a result of the live we did. But are we any closer to splitting this can open?
There's an awful lot more to come, and there's a lot of work that's going on in the background as well regarding this. There is, when I say exciting is the wrong word. I would say that there is hope out there for paying parents from what they are currently experiencing. And like most of them, I've also experienced the child maintenance service using out-of-date data, inflating incomes. I have had the heavyweight enforcement process also inflicted on me. So I understand what everyday people are trying to go through. And the fact that we're treated like criminals and you have absolutely no recourse for justice whatsoever. It's a very, very sad state of affairs. And all of our public services are actually causing more harm than good. And the way that I see it, children are being used as weapons by the state against both parents. And it's absolutely despicable. And all it's doing is tearing our family dynamic apart.
Absolutely.
The family unit should be supported. The family dynamic should be supported. But we're not seeing that at the moment through the family courts, through the various different government bodies. They're actually tearing families apart. Hence why I'm also seeing, well, we're all seeing this spike in knife crime, youth violence, because there's just no role models anymore in anyone's life. And this is what we're committed to at Reform UK, to changing. So it's all very well coming out and saying we're going to be tough on law and order, you know, we're zero tolerance and we're going to crack down and all the rest of it. But we're actually looking at the root causes of these real issues that the other political parties are refusing to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, if you're happy, we'll talk a little bit about reform now, shall we? A couple of things that people are concerned about and a little bit about policy. Now, I've got a small list here. Now, there's one thing that's really sticks out to me, because I only live about 15 miles away from where all this is going on. You know, day in, day out, you have little dinghies, we'll call them, coming from the coast of France over to Dover, full of individuals, numbering in the hundreds every week, with no end in sight. It's been going on for, well, years now, and records have been broken. How will reform stop the boats? Well, what's your take on this?
Well, it's very, very simple. Firstly, we're committed. Yeah, we're not putting any sound bites out there of where, you know, of where we're going to send these people. You know, it's just very, very, very simple. The laws are there and the legislation exists to stop the boats, and we will stop the boats, even if we have to do it ourselves. If we're elected, we will even do it ourselves. Lee Anderson has categorically stated that he will go out there and he will tow these rubber dinghies back to Calais himself. Yeah, it's very, very simple. In our policy, we have said we will pick them up and we will take them straight back to France. But then what's the argument? What's the argument that the left who like to consistently, oh, what are you going to do? Declare war on France? Well, no, we're not declaring war on France. And if France wants to declare war on us, then that's up to France, isn't it?
Well, I just want to mention a bit of hypocrisy that came out about that. You know, one of the excuses is, oh, we can't put naval vessels near the French coastline, even if it's for search and rescue operations, because it'd be seen as, you know, threatening or tantamount to some kind of invasion. Yet the French come and guard Buckingham Palace. It's a bit of a one-sided hypocrisy going on there. So yeah, I'm not buying any of that. Lee Anderson, of course, he's you know, good for his word when he says he's going to do something. I remember something about when he was a councillor to prevent some travellers coming into a site. He blocked the thing off with a load of big concrete blocks or something, and he got in a bit of trouble for it. But he said he was going to do it, but did it?
But that's exactly it, Andy. We've got the political desire and we've got the political will to stop it. You know, a country is not a country without borders. Yeah, and it is an invasion. It absolutely is an invasion. You know, we have so many assets that we can use to actually stop it. And if Border Force doesn't want to do it, that's absolutely fine. But we'll find somebody who does. We can deploy the Navy. We can deploy the Navy. We can deploy the military. We can do whatever it takes to actually stop these people from coming across. And I don't buy into this this narrative that all of these people, all of these men are fleeing war zones. Well, if we look back to the First World War and the Second World War, none of our men were fleeing war zones. We stood and fought.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had this conversation with my wife. I said, if this country was invaded and we had to leave, the person that they would find on that rubber dinghy is you and the kids. It wouldn't be me. You know, we get our families to safety. So something isn't quite right there somewhere.
No. So obviously that is what we would do regarding illegal immigration. And immigration, we've said that we will freeze immigration. Now, I know that there was a lot of confusion regarding the one out, one in. That now has been scrapped. We are freezing immigration because what happens with reform, it's a finely tuned machine. We go out there, we speak on the doorsteps, and all of that information that comes back to us, the potential parliamentary candidates, that information is filtered through the chain of command. And then obviously the big decisions are made by the headshed of Reform UK. So they have decided now that we will actually freeze immigration. We will decide who comes into the United Kingdom and who doesn't. And I think that that is fair, and I think that is balanced. From my perspective, this is not a reform policy, but from my own perspective, what I would like to see is that until we can understand who is in the United Kingdom and who's here legally, that we have a complete moratorium on immigration. That's what I would personally like to see. Also, this is not a reform policy, but yet again, is what I would like to see is a referendum on immigration. Let's have a referendum on it, because it's such an emotive, divisive subject, immigration, that what I believe should happen is that if you're voting for immigration, that you should have to include your postcode on the slip where you're ticking yes or no. And no vote will be valid unless you actually have a postcode on your voting slip. And I would say the top 10 areas that want the immigration, and that's absolutely fine by me, Andy, because this is a democracy. So people might want it, but people that don't want it. And the people that do want immigration, well, we can build detention centres and homes and everything else in those areas, and we can put all of the immigrants into those areas, because those people rightfully, and that's their democratic right to want it, we can put all illegal immigrants that are coming across, we can put everybody who's come across legally into those areas. But obviously that would be reflected in their council tax and their tax codes with HMRC, because if they want the immigration and then other people in the United Kingdom don't want that immigration, the people who don't want it can't be expected to pay for it.
No.
So the people that do want it, that's absolutely fine, but they'll have to pay for it.
Yeah, I see the sense in that. I mean, we've got many examples of people. I know them personally. There's a taxi driver I know springs to mind. He's Afghanistani. He came over here. He works probably harder than 2 or 3 of me. He's built a life, managed to get himself British citizenship, bought a house, raised a family, obeys our rules and everything else. Perfect, absolutely perfect. But we've got no control, and we don't know who's here, where they are, what they're doing. The drawbridge needs to come up, and we need to have a good sort out, don't we, before, you know, we go further down that line. But a lot of your comments I certainly agree with.
Well, it's fair, isn't it? I mean, and it is a democracy. So those that do want the immigration and unlimited amounts of immigration, that's absolutely fine, but you'll have to pay for it. But the ones that don't want it, then you can't expect them to pay for it. That's a fair society. That is a fair and balanced approach.
I see that, definitely. If we move away from immigration, one of the key things, I mean, I take a personal interest in this because, as I said, my dad was a copper back in the day, and I know how things should be done, is the police, the rising levels of crime, lower numbers of police. And, you know, how do we get that back under control? It's out of control. You can read the paper, and there's several nasty incidents every single day. What do we do about it?
Okay, so what I believe would have to happen, first things first, we would have to remove absolute wokeness out of the police. And what I would like to see, with the police is this police service being removed. Yeah, they're not a police service; they are a police force, and that's where I believe that the initial steps to getting our old police force back to normal, where all they do is just enforce the law. Now, the good, hard-working people of society have got nothing to worry about. But if you are a criminal and if you are making other people's lives a misery, the police mandate will be that they will get really busy with you. The police will get so busy with you if you are going out there and you are committing crimes or you are making other people's lives a misery. And that's what I would like to see with police. I don't believe it's all about numbers. I don't believe that at all, because how many of these roadblocks when you go into London have got loads and loads and loads of police officers? You know, a lot of these TikTok videos, when you see these auditors or whatever, you know, loads of police officers will come out of out of the police station. I just don't think that police resources are being utilised correctly, and they have to just follow the law. The law doesn't discriminate. No. The law is there in black and white. But if you break the law, then what I would like to see is the police getting really busy with you.
I mean, one of the things that is a problem is the paperwork, the bureaucracy. I mean, you go back to the 1970s. If someone was arrested, the police officer would have a pocketbook with all their notes and bits and pieces about evidence in it, and an arrest form. There was no CPS, no bullshit. It got done. The job was done by whatever means necessary to do it. I mean, I spoke to a copper about a year ago, and he said you have to actually fill in a form if you handcuff somebody. Oh my God. And we wonder why we got the problems we have. A lot of that has got to go.
Absolutely.
One of the things that bites everybody, you know, since it seems like Ukraine, but it's probably been in the works before that. All of our bills have gone up. Fuel. I mean, it was £2 a litre at one point. That'll bite you as well as it does me with your business with the scaffold lorries and everything. Our heating, our electric, our food, it's out of control. What do you think, or what's Reform's thoughts about bringing that back under control?
Well, firstly, Andy, I mean, we're badly governed. We're poorly governed. So all of these corporations, all of these companies, they're being allowed, if probably encouraged, to keep hiking their prices. So obviously, the first thing that Reform has said is that we will raise the tax threshold to £20,000. So for those that don't understand that, so currently it sits around, I think it's £12,500. So the first £12,500 that we all earn is tax free. So anything after that is what you're going to pay that rate of tax at, whether it's 20% or 40%. Whatever it might be. So everything over that £12,500. So what we've said is that we're going to raise that tax threshold from £12,500 to £20,000, which will give people more money in the pocket. Hence, more money will go into the economy. So what we're doing is it's the same approach as a business. What we're looking to do is increase the volume,
right?
Not hitting people with tax. So the first thing that we want to do is raise it to £20,000. Secondly, we take control of our own energy. Richard's been very, very vocal about the point that we've got shale gas that we're just not capitalising on. So we would create and generate our own energy.
Okay. I mean, that's a big thing, isn't it? I mean, there was an article that came out within the last week where I think a big supply was discovered in the North Sea, and they were talking about putting rigs out there and everything else. We have got to be more self-sufficient than we are. That's a definite must.
Well,
But
we
no,
have to, because I mean, currently at the moment we're extorting energy into the United Kingdom at extortionate amounts of money, Andy.
mm,
And this is unsustainable. For people who have children, for people who have mortgages, the interest rates that have been hiked, people are really, really, really struggling, massively struggling. And my constituents over here in Hemel, who I speak to every day, they are broken. They are absolutely broken. They've got no support whatsoever. Bills are increasing, and there is no way out for these people. And it's a very, very sad state of affairs. This is no way to live, and this is not a healthy, functioning society.
no, it isn't. I mean, I've got a friend or two that really struggles, you know, and we've managed to help them. One of which can't work because of physical and mental ailments, and pretty much once a month, Andy, can you lend me 50, 60 quid to get me by? You know, it's heartbreaking. And this is someone 20 years ago worked harder than anybody I knew, and it really is a disgraceful state of affairs.
Well, what really gets my back up, Andy, is that the good people of our country who are going out there trying to earn money, trying to get by every single day, are having the life absolutely squeezed out of them. Yet people who are coming to our country illegally, at the cost of us, are being put in 4- and 5-star luxury hotels. To me, that is absolutely criminal. That is going on.
Do you know I got thrown out of one of those hotels for that very reason? I went up to Luton Airport to do an airport pickup, and I needed the loo. I thought, oh my god, and there's not very many places up there. And I saw this hotel. I walked through the door, and I got about 2 foot over the threshold, and this big burly bloke said, "Stop, we're closed. Get out." He was really, really, you know. I thought, well, hang on. I looked around. I was the only English guy in the place. And I thought, oh, I see. Right. And off I went. But they're all over the country. All over the country. What I want to address, the last two things, and then we'll have a look at some of the comments that people. There is a lot of comments, but we won't be able to get to all of them with the time we got left. Reform UK is a clear and present danger to the establishment. You're a threat. Now, that becomes blatantly obvious because of the way you're talked about and the impression that's been given by the mainstream media. Now, if I wanted to take down an organisation, the first person I would start picking holes at is the head of this organisation, the visible leader. We, of course, talk about Richard Tice. Now, a lot has been said about him and a lot has been inferred in the media as to who he is, why he does what he does, and his character. And I see some of the concerns with the subscribers of this channel who buy into that and think, no, Richard is pro this, pro that, pro the other. Who is Richard Tice? You know, what's he like really? How would you describe him?
Okay, so obviously, you know, I have a relationship with Richard, and I find Richard a thoroughly decent guy, and I really do. He's been so supportive of all of the work that I've done, Andy, regarding ULEZ, the CMS, and this is very controversial stuff, you know, that I've been talking about publicly, and at no time has Richard ever once said to me, you can't say this, Noel, or you can't say that. He has supported every single thing that I've done. I think Richard is a great leader. He's very approachable. He listens to the feedback that's given to him. And sometimes he's openly said, look, I might get some things wrong. And if I do get things wrong, I want to put them right. He's very determined to restore this great country of ours, and he genuinely heartfelt is disgusted with what is going on in the United Kingdom. He, you know, like all of us, he is disillusioned. Now, look, let's be under no illusion here. Richard is an incredibly rich man. He's done well for himself. So that would indicate to me that he genuinely does care, because he doesn't need to do this, Andy.
Mm.
He just doesn't need to do what he could be in the Bahamas on a yacht, or he loves skiing. He could be off just skiing all year round. He can afford to do that. But the fact that he's staying here with all of the criticism that he receives and keeps pushing through it really shows leadership potential to me. So that really is who is Richard. And regarding the child maintenance service, he's really genuinely concerned about what's going on. How many of the other leaders of any political parties are even talking about this? None of them.
No.
And how people can say that Richard Tice is establishment is beyond me. He has spent his whole political career being anti-establishment. He's a staunch Brexiteer. Everybody who voted Brexit, Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe, all the MEPs that there were, Nigel Farage, how can they be establishment when they have advocated their whole lives to anti-establishment by leaving the establishment?
Mm.
For me, it just doesn't really make sense. So you can't believe what you read in the media about Richard Tice. You just can't.
It's snippets, isn't it? Sound bites. I mean, I'm guilty of it earlier. I played a 6-second sound bite of someone saying paper Martha now. You can take the end of a sentence, a word, or a little piece of footage, and you can twist it and make it sound however you want it to. And I think very much that's where we are. For example, his visit to Ukraine, standing there with the medical convoy. God, the feedback I saw of that, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It's all in the messaging, isn't it? The last thing I want to cover, and this is another area of controversy, which I think has been used as a whipping stick for reform, is hope not hate. Mm-hmm. Now, there's some Reform Party candidates that have been stood down. And on your word, which I trust, you've said, they've been idiots, basically. They've done something they shouldn't have done. It's against party policy. Bye-bye. It's been dealt with rapidly. Now, when it comes out into the media, when it comes out into the press, hope not hate are controlling what goes on with reform. So what do you say to that?
Okay, so hope not hate is just another quango, isn't it? And regarding hope not hate, I totally support the action that's been taken by reform. Any candidate that's been posting any inappropriate comments is dealt with swiftly. And Richard has always been very, very vocal about that. Now, he's not taking orders from Hope Not Hate, but what Hope Not Hate are doing is that they are trolling our social media accounts. Right. Our tweets, whatever social media that the chosen social media that parliamentary candidate is using, they're trolling them to see what comments they've been making about stuff. And if they are deemed inappropriate, then it goes through an internal process in reform, and it's dealt with very, very swiftly. Now, if they believe in reform that those comments are inappropriate, then they've been so vocal about it. They've sent out policies regarding our social media. We know what we can say and what we're not allowed to say. And if they have breached party policy, then they will be stood down in that area.
Right.
And it has been done very, very, very swiftly. Now, any inappropriate comments that are racist, sexist, or whatever is deemed unacceptable, every single one of us, Andy, has a responsibility, not to make inappropriate comments, as far as I see it. And if a party wants to be taken seriously on the world stage, then they have to take action, and they have to do it very, very swiftly.
Yeah, I understand that totally. I understand that. Right, what I want to do is just, if you're all right, 5 or 10 minutes just looking at some comments people have made. But before
Sorry,
I
just
do,
to clarify, can we just clarify there, Richard?
Yeah.
Sorry, Andy. God, Richard, I've just
that's my
promoted
middle
you.
name.
I've just promoted you. We're certainly not taking any orders from Hope Not Hate. They're not having any influence on us at all. All they're simply doing is just highlighting what a political candidate might be saying that's inappropriate. Okay?
Okay, that's fine. Now, what I want to do is just, if we can have another 10 minutes, Noel, just address some of the comments some people have made. We can't go through them all. There's literally loads, but we'll do some. Before I do, is there anything else that you want to say or any comment you want to make before we look at what some folks have said?
All I would like to say is that if you keep voting for the same two-tier political system that we have, don't expect anything to change. I mean, if you're happy with the way that the country's being run at the moment, then continue voting for Labour or Conservative. But if you genuinely want change, then you need to vote for reform. And hopefully by people listening to me, I mean, if they can share it on their socials so people can actually hear what Reform UK are all about, hopefully in this general election, we really can make a difference.
Absolutely. That's the important thing. I mean, this has been such a good discussion. So, you know, two things that will help it, you know, get shared. Hit the like button. That's the most important thing. And if you're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X, you name it, get it shared, retweet, and get the word around. Right, let's have a look at some. Go on.
I was going to say, I think we're so used to now being told that we can't do. I think it's about time that we can do.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, that's where I think we're at now.
Totally. I totally agree with that. Right. Max Robson. My God, that's a big one. Good work, lads. I'm a veteran, having served 22 years doing many operational tours. Now I'm left homeless and no support. Oh, my God. Alienated from my children. The system is broken. We need drastic change. Rip up the system and start again. Noel WILLCOX is right. Parental alienation is rife in this country. Guilty before proven innocent. Well, there's an example of a bad situation right there. And again, caused by what we have, which needs to change. Steve Murphy, the same thing happened to me. Social services refused to disclose the stepdad's criminal record. My God. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the kids that I feel for. You know, when the father or the mother is driven to the point of no return, they've lost a parent. And you look at your situation, well, what scars is that going to leave on your daughter? You know, it's disgraceful.
Well, I think there, I mean, you know, it's not just about the future of the children of this country, it's the future for everybody. And all of our public services, all of our government services, they are in absolute desperate, dire, they are in dire shape at the moment, and they all need reforming. Every single public service. But don't forget as well, we have added an extra 10 million people to our population. So it's inevitable that our public services were going to buckle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my view, the children are our future. You know, let's face it. All right, we've still got a 4 at the beginning of our age, but let's face it, we're getting older, and you know, we have a limited amount of time to do something about this now for them. So, if not now, when? It's got to be now, or it just won't happen. Russell, I grew up in a children's home. The social worker written reports bore little resemblance to what I'd said, so I can only assume ditto. Ref my parents. Another child maintenance stroke social services comment there. Get Sadiq Khan out on the 2nd of May. Tactical vote for Susan Hall, who will scrap ULEZ in 15. Susan Hall will not scrap ULEZ. Susan Hall says she will scrap the ULEZ expansion, and to be honest, I don't believe a word of it. 15-minute cities is another.
Andy, who's going to trust another Conservative?
Yeah.
Who's going to trust another Conservative? Everybody should be voting for Howard Cox. Howard Cox has said that he will get rid of ULEZ, the expansion. There will be none of this 20 mile an hour. He'll scrap the 20 mile an hour. It's slowing down the whole of the capital, and the whole of the capital needs rebolstering. The local economy in London needs rebolstering.
Well, that comment is a prime example of what we're saying. People are so used to the whole idea of the two-party state. Oh, we've got to vote them to make sure they get out. Hang on a minute. It's broken. Take a step back and look at it. I mean, no offense intended to the person that made the comment at all, but it is an example of, you know, the way people think in this country. Lisa, many fathers are treated dreadfully. Not good for the children's mental and physical health either. No, certainly not. As we were just saying. Steve, can I join you in the fight for our children? Any mother who refused contact with no good reason is the problem. Narcissistic personality disorder. Now, koala meat. Every politician makes great promises before being elected, but can't be found for a simple answer after they get in office, sadly. Why should we trust anyone in politics any longer? It's what we've been speaking about.
You know what? I sympathise completely with that point, Andy, because everybody is so disillusioned with the political landscape at the moment. So we are different, and if the public give us our vote, we will show them what we can do. And I hope that. Sorry, I didn't catch that lady's last name there who made that comment, but I hope what she's seen with me is that with the campaigns that I've been campaigning on, that I'm not elected and I'm trying to make a change.
That's a hell of a screen name. I avoid anyone or anything that has hope, not hate involved. I won't be voting for any or the swamp dwellers, and that includes reform. Well, that's an unfortunate comment, and I hope there's been some clarification this afternoon, because, yeah, you know, they're a threat. And, you know, we've got to see past it, what we're being told in the media. But we present the information, you make your own mind up. Oh, my God. Even Turncoat Farage suggested we have a referendum on leaving the ECHR. No, you locked us into it in Brexit surrender. That looks like a Remainer there. Let's get rid of that one. Similar things happening in most Western countries, and similar discussed in our political leaders. They all seem to be in on an agreed destruction of our societies. It does seem like that sometimes, doesn't it? I think the world's gone absolutely crazy, all in unison.
Definitely.
Khan wasting our money defending his rubbish. Oh, don't. I could go on another hour about that gentleman. I mean, he's talking about another race to net zero thing if he's re-elected. Please, someone have some sense. There's a great interview I did with Howard Cox on this channel months ago now, when he pretty much first said he was going to run for Mayor of London, and that's worth a watch. I'll see if I can put a link to it in the description to this. Michael, Sunderland as a whole voted for Brexit, whilst our 3 Labour MPs voted against it. They should have resigned, but they didn't. No honour at all. There's no honour in any of them anymore. You know, it's all the power play, not for the good of the people. Jackson Williams, government trying to divide us into submission for sure by breaking us all down and questioning ourselves. And it's, you know, higher cost, more regulation, more woke, and a lot of people were just saying, oh, I can't fight anymore. It's awful. It needs to change. Koala meat, I'm a 58-year-old vet and would go to war again, but not for a land that hates me and everything I did to defend, said Land. Veterans are saying that. I think there's one person I read that's talking about a group of them going to London and giving their berets and their medals back to the king because they're so disgusted. Paul Evans, we'll do this in 2 more, Noel, and then we'll call it quits. Paul Evans, people are starting to wake up in this country and realising you can't trust Labour or Conservatives. They want to help everybody but their own people. Wake up, everyone. Vote reform. Absolutely. There's another person that feels like we do. I will be voting reform just because I would rather vote for this party than not vote. I'm not holding out much hope, as I have less than zero trust in any politician at the moment. That, again, is a symptom of how we've been treated over the years by the establishment. You just have no faith in any of it. You've got two choices, haven't you? You either vote for something different or go down that polling booth and write, I do not consent. You know, you've got to vote for something different. Last comment. Diana, brilliant. Yes, I agree with that. As long as I don't have to pay for these illegal immigrants, even if I live in an area that some want these illegal immigrants living in their area. That's referring to your suggestion. If they want them, pay for them. If they don't, we shouldn't, because it's not fair. Well, that's so many comments came in. Unfortunately, with the time we have, there's not time to deal with them all. There's just a small selection. Now,
so, Andy, can I just clarify just a couple of points just before we wrap this up?
You certainly can.
Yeah, just a couple of things as well. As a policy as well, we've also said that we will scrap net zero as well, which is the energy plan for this country. So we've said that we will scrap that, and also as well, we will certainly be leaving the European Convention of Human Rights, which is the ECHR, and go back to our normal British Bill of Rights, which are human rights anyway. Nothing's really affected. It's just that we're not accountable to anybody in a foreign court. That's the way. That is exactly what we've said that we will do. And I would certainly say to all of your subscribers, whoever's on here, that they should definitely look at our contract with the people. It's not a manifesto. This is the contract with the people. And if people like what we're saying, please, please, please support Reform UK any way that you can. Your local parliamentary candidates, sign up to Reform, do whatever it might be, because we need to save this country.
Absolutely. That contract with the people is available online as well. You can find it on Google quite easily. Just put Reform UK contract with the people and it comes to the top of the list. So you can read it on there as well. Well, is there anything else you want to add, Noel, before we wrap up?
Nothing at all, Andy.
Lovely stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining us once again, Noel. It's been a great chat as always. Covered a lot of ground. I'm sure we'll be back again with other subjects as and when we need to do a live and discuss them. Thanks. Yeah, definitely. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining us on this earlier live stream. As I said at the beginning, I will repackage this and send it out again at 9 o'clock tonight for those that couldn't make it this afternoon. You'll get a second bite of the cherry this evening. Please have a look. Make sure, if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel, because there'll be more updates about all sorts of things coming out. Hit the like button on this live stream. And as always, share me on your social media, because it helps it all spread around. Thanks again. And as always, I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, Noel. And see you later, everybody.
Thanks, Andy.